Title: The Haunted Whispers of Maplewood. Uncovering the town's darkest secret. Claire Wren hadn't been back to Maplewood in over 20 years. The train groaned to a stop at the rusted platform, the sound jarring in the morning stillness. She stepped off with a single bag and a thick coat wrapped tightly around her, the October air biting and dry. The station looked the same: a sagging bench, a sun-faded town map behind cracked glass, and a stray dog asleep near the parking lot fence. Time hadn't moved here. If anything, it had retreated. Claire scanned the empty streets as she lit a cigarette, her eyes tracing the outlines of buildings she used to know. The diner on Elm, the shuttered library, the church with the leaning bell tower, all grayed and faded like an old photograph. Her breath hung in the air. This place had never been home. Not really. But it was where she grew up, and where her name was still whispered with a mix of pity and suspicion. She took a long drag. Back again, Wren, she thought. Let's see what the ghosts have for you this time. She didn't come back by choice. An envelope had arrived 3 weeks ago. No return address, no name. Inside was a single page. A missing persons report from 1996. A girl named Lily Harrow, age 11, vanished during the Harvest Festival. Cold case. Claire had worked hundreds of these at the bureau, but something about this one didn't sit right. The photo showed a girl with sad eyes and a faint smile. Scrawled in red ink at the bottom of the page were the words, "You know what they buried." That was enough to send her packing. Claire had grown up 2 streets over from the Harrow house. She remembered Lily vaguely. A quiet kid who kept to herself, always drawing in the dirt behind the church. She disappeared the same fall Claire left for college. The case never made headlines. The town never talked about it. And that was the problem. The boarding house was run by Mrs. Klein, same as it had been in the 90s. The old woman met her at the door, looking smaller and more brittle than Claire remembered, wrapped in a shawl that smelled like lavender and mothballs. "You look tired," Mrs. Klein said, eyes scanning her like an X-ray. "I am," Claire replied. "Room still upstairs?" "Second on the right. Sheets are clean. Don't mind the noise at night. The pipes rattle." Claire nodded. Always did. As she climbed the narrow staircase, she noticed the wallpaper hadn't changed. That pale blue floral pattern that peeled at the corners. She dropped her bag inside the room, opened the window, and stared out at the town. Rows of houses sat like quiet teeth, tucked behind black trees. Somewhere, a wind chime clinked. She didn't believe in omens, but this place made her stomach twist in knots. That evening, Claire walked into town. The streets were too clean, too still. It was a Friday night, yet the diner had only 2 patrons. The pharmacy lights flickered. Kids weren't out. No music. Just the soft hum of power lines overhead and the occasional creak of wind-blown signs. At the sheriff's office, the door was locked. A paper sign read, "Back soon," though no time was written on it. Claire cupped her hands to the window. Inside, lights buzzed. A single desk lamp was left on. Dust swirled like pollen in the beam. She tapped the glass once, then turned away. At the edge of town, she reached the Harrow house. It sat beneath a crooked elm, the porch half collapsed, windows boarded. A mailbox dangled by one hinge. Spray painted across the garage was a single word. "Stay." Claire crouched, looking at the dirt near the porch. Faded chalk marks, circles, strange symbols, and a small plastic hair clip, butterfly-shaped, cracked in half. Her breath caught. something moved behind the curtain on the second floor. She stood sharp, but the curtain was still again. Claire backed away slowly, noting the number carved into the porch rail. 7, repeated again and again, 777. She took a photo, then left. That night, the dreams came. She was back in the woods behind Maplewood Elementary, leaves crunching underfoot. The wind whispered her name, not like a voice, but like something pulling air through teeth. Claire. Claire? In the dream, she saw a hand reach from the dirt. Small, pale, and twitching. It gripped her ankle. She screamed, but no sound came out. Then she woke. Heart pounding, room dark, only the pipes rattling. Or so she told herself. Until she heard the second sound. A voice, whispering, right outside her door. Claire sat up fast. The sheet twisted around her legs. She held her breath, listening. The whisper had stopped. The hallway outside her door was silent. No creaking floorboards, no pipes. Just silence thick enough to press against her eardrums. She reached for the small knife she kept in her boot. A habit she hadn't shaken since DC. She opened the door quietly. Nothing. The narrow hall stretched both ways, dimly lit by the faint glow of the nightlight Mrs. Klein insisted on keeping in the wall, shaped like a ceramic cat. At the far end, the bathroom door was closed. Claire stepped out barefoot, moving slowly. She checked the bathroom. Empty, cold, smelled like mildew and bleach. Then she saw it. Faint, just on the wall behind the towel rack. A smudge. No. A word, drawn with a finger in steam or grease. Faint, but there. Listen. Claire stared at it, then wiped it away with her palm. The next morning, she visited the local records office. A gray brick building stuck between the town hall and an old shoe repair shop that hadn't opened in a decade. The clerk, a balding man with heavy eyelids and a badge that read H. Darnell, barely looked up when she walked in. "I'm looking for files on a missing girl," Claire said, sliding Lily's photocopied case report across the counter. Lily Harrow disappeared in 1996. Darnell sighed like she'd asked him to move a mountain. "Everything before 2000's in the basement," he muttered. "Boxes ain't digitized." "I'll go down myself." He handed her a ring of keys without a word. The basement smelled like wet paper and dust. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. She moved between rows of rusting metal shelves, fingering through boxes until she found the Harrow file, or what was left of it. 3 pages. 1. The initial report. Missing child. Last seen near the Harvest Festival grounds around dusk. 2. A brief statement from Lily's mother claiming she wandered off. 3. A note, unsigned, dated 2 weeks later. Case closed by community request. Unsubstantiated claims of ritual activity dismissed. Claire froze. She scanned the page again. There was no investigator name, no supervisor approval. Just a rubber stamp, closed. She dug further but found nothing. No interviews, no search documentation, not even a follow-up. Just silence, like the town had swallowed the whole thing. At the diner that afternoon, she picked the corner booth. The place smelled like burnt coffee and canned soup. A few locals sat scattered, speaking in low voices. A waitress with too much makeup poured her a refill without asking. Claire unfolded the pages on the table. She underlined the words "community request" in red. Then someone slid into the booth across from her. She didn't look up right away, just said, "Can I help you?" "I heard you're asking questions," the man said, voice low. Calm. "That's dangerous here." She looked up, mid-50s, work jacket, faint scar across the bridge of his nose. He looked like someone who'd spent too much time in the woods. Depends who's listening, Claire said. He tapped a calloused finger on the table. Lily wasn't the only one. Claire's eyes narrowed. Go on. The man glanced over his shoulder. You didn't hear this from me, but over the years, others vanished. Kids, mostly, some adults. They just stopped showing up. Always around fall. Why wasn't that in the record? He gave a humorless chuckle. Because no one writes it down. Not here. You think we trust the law? We don't even trust each other. Claire leaned in. Why not? His face changed. Went pale. Serious. They hear you when you talk about them. The hollow men. Claire blinked. Who? He stood up. Forget it. You're not ready. And he walked out. That night, Claire drove to the edge of town. To the woods. It was something about the word listen that stuck in her brain. Something primal. The forest loomed dark and thick behind the Harrow property. She parked near the abandoned trailhead and hiked in with a flashlight and recorder. The trees swallowed sound. No crickets, no wind, just the crunch of her boots. She walked for 20 minutes before stopping at a small clearing. In the middle, half buried under leaves, sat a wooden sign, burned into the wood. We remember what you forgot, and something else, carved beneath in a child's shaky hand. They live under the roots. Claire turned on her recorder. She asked simple questions. Who is Lily Harrow? What happened to her? Who are the hollow men? Silence. Then, a whisper, faint, not in her ears. In the recorder, she played it back. At the end of the audio, layered under the wind, a voice, small, childlike. Don't dig, don't look, don't wake them. Claire turned off the recorder, and then she heard it again, with no device. A whisper from the trees, calling her name. Claire. She ran. Claire didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of her room, recorder in one hand, the other gripping a pen as she scribbled notes. The child's voice on the playback echoed in her head. Don't dig, don't look, don't wake them. She'd worked cult cases before. Dangerous people, twisted rituals, false gods. But this didn't feel like a cult. There was no doctrine, no leader, just fear, ancient and shapeless, something older than belief. In the morning, she returned to the sheriff's office. This time, it was open. Sheriff Rick Morley sat behind the desk, feet up, hat pulled low. Late 40s, stocky, with a badge that had seen more polishing than use. He didn't look surprised to see her. Claire Wren, he said, not looking up. You were FBI, back when people still gave a damn. She stayed standing. How long have you known about the disappearances? He exhaled slowly. This again. Claire dropped the recorder on the desk and hit play. When the whisper ended, Morley looked at her. No smirk, no sarcasm, just a deep, tired fear. I was 12 when Lily vanished, he said. My brother? He saw something, said she didn't just disappear, said she was pulled. Pulled? He leaned forward. From beneath the Harrow house, through the floor. He was never the same after that. Took his own life in 2007. Claire sat down. Why does no one talk about this? Because we remember what happened the last time someone did. He opened a drawer and slid a newspaper clipping across the desk. Maplewood man dies in house fire. July 14th, 1999. Reporter, Morley said, fresh out of college, thought he'd make a name digging into Lily's case. Week after he published the story, his house burned down. He was inside. Claire scanned the article. The name jumped out at her. Graham Donnell. Any relation to the clerk at the records office? Morley nodded. His brother? You think he gave you those files by accident? Claire felt her throat tighten. "How deep does this go?" she asked. Molly looked at the window. "They say the town was built on sacred ground. Something older lived here. Before the church, before the settlers. The Lenape tribe called this area Wakawane, the land that listens." He turned to her. "You keep asking questions. Something's gonna start listening to you." That evening, Claire returned to the Harrow house, this time with a crowbar and flashlight. She broke the back door open. Hinges screamed, but no one came. The house smelled like wet wood and rot. The wallpaper curled like peeling skin. On the stairs, small handprints in dust, too small to be adult. She moved slowly, flashlight sweeping across water-damaged walls. The living room floor had a soft spot near the old fireplace. Claire crouched and pressed down. The wood flexed. She pried at the floorboard. It came up with a groan. Below, a crawl space. She lowered herself down. The air was thick and dry, like it hadn't been disturbed in decades. Cobwebs clung to her hair and arms. She clicked on her headlamp. The dirt floor was uneven, cracked. Carved symbols lined the wooden beams. Spirals, triangles, crosses with circles. Some matched what she saw behind the diner. Others were new. Then she saw it. A small rotted wooden box, half buried in the earth. She dug it out carefully. Inside, a lock of blonde hair tied with string, a rusted spoon, a child's drawing in red crayon, a figure with no eyes, just a mouth stretching from ear to ear, and a note, folded tight. Brittle at the creases, she unfolded it slowly. "We gave them Lily. It wasn't enough." Claire's heart slammed in her chest. Suddenly, above her, a creak, footsteps. Someone was in the house. She killed the light, held her breath. Dust drifted down from the boards as the footsteps moved across the floor above. Slowly, deliberately, then stopped. Right above her, the boards groaned. Then the voice, faint, childlike, echoing beneath the floorboards. "You shouldn't have come back." Claire didn't breathe. She lay motionless in the crawl space, every muscle tight, heart hammering in her throat. Dust drifted down from the wooden slats above as footsteps creaked overhead. Slow, measured, deliberate. Someone was tracking her. Not walking through the house, pacing directly above her. She slid the wooden box silently under her jacket. The objects inside rattled softly, and the footsteps paused. Claire gritted her teeth. She reached for the floor's edge, pulled herself up just enough to peek through a narrow gap. Nothing. She waited another beat, then climbed out, knife in hand, every movement fluid and silent. The room was empty, no door open, no window broken. Just the soft sway of a curtain and the feeling that something had been there and left without leaving a trace. Claire didn't go back to Mrs. Klein's. She drove, anywhere, nowhere, winding through the outskirts of town where houses thinned and woods took over. She passed Maplewood Elementary, a one-story building with boarded windows and a rusting slide in the back. Then the old sawmill, long abandoned. Eventually, she stopped at the town's edge. There was an overgrown cemetery there, where cracked headstones leaned like crooked teeth. The moonlight gave everything a pale glow. She needed space to think. She sat on the hood of the car, turning the contents of the wooden box over in her lap. Each item was symbolic, clearly part of some ritual, but who performed it? The townspeople? A cult? Number? It was worse. The town wasn't hiding people. It was hiding something else. She unfolded the crayon drawing again. The figure's mouth was jagged and wide, but what chilled her was the detail around it. Faint outlines of trees, and under them, Dozens of smaller figures, bent, hollow. Suddenly the silence broke. A voice behind her. "You shouldn't be here." Claire turned sharply, flashlight in hand. A boy stood at the edge of the trees. Couldn't have been older than 10. Pale, freckles, barefoot. She kept her distance. "Are you lost?" He didn't answer, just stared. Then he lifted a hand and pointed. Not at her, but behind her. Claire turned. The trees moved. No wind, just a slow, unnatural shiver across the woods, as if something underneath was waking up. When she looked back, the boy was gone. By dawn, she was back in town knocking on H. Darnell's door at the records office. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "You saw them, didn't you?" he said, voice hoarse. Claire nodded. "Tell me everything." He hesitated, then led her inside, past the counter, into the back room. A filing cabinet sat against the wall. He opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a folder marked Maplewood, black file. Inside were photos, old ones, burned fields, carcasses of animals arranged in circles. A group of townsfolk standing around something blurred out, deliberately scratched off the negatives. "My brother was investigating this before the fire," Darnell said. "He found out the town founders made a pact with something beneath the land. They called them the Hollow Men." What was the pact? A sacrifice every decade. They believed if the town offered one soul, the rest would be spared. Crops would grow, winters would be mild, accidents would stay rare. Lily was the last one. Claire felt cold. "That was almost 30 years ago," Darnell nodded. "It's past due." Claire stood at the edge of the woods that night, staring into the dark. She wasn't going to run. Not this time. She stepped in. The trees closed behind her. As she walked, the temperature dropped. The air grew heavy. She followed no path, just instinct. And the whispers. They came in waves, soft and childlike, curling around her like mist. Then she saw them. Figures, dozens, motionless between the trees. Tall, impossibly thin, wrapped in what looked like tattered black cloth. No eyes, just mouths, wide, open, silent. The Hollow Men. They parted as she stepped into a hollow in the earth. A pit lined with symbols, bones, and ash. At its center, a stone altar. On it, a new note. Handwritten. Fresh. "She broke the pact. You brought her back." Claire's blood ran cold. "Lily," she whispered. Behind her, a child's giggle. She turned. Lily stood at the edge of the pit, unaged, untouched. "I didn't want to come back," she said softly. "They made me." Claire stepped back. "You were the offering," Lily nodded. "But now they want more." She pointed behind Claire. The Hollow Men had moved. Closer, mouths opening wider. Claire ran. She burst from the woods as dawn cracked over Maplewood. Her lungs burned, her thoughts fractured. There would be no reasoning with the town, no calling for help. She didn't sleep. That afternoon, she left a package at the sheriff's office. The recording, the box, her notes. Then she drove, past the station, past the town line, towards somewhere, anywhere, not Maplewood. Behind her, the trees swayed. Whispering, 3 weeks later, a news brief ran in a small Pennsylvania paper. Private investigator disappears near Maplewood. Authorities say Claire Wren was last seen leaving town at sunrise. Her car was found abandoned on a dirt road near the forest. Locals declined to comment. Search efforts are ongoing. They wouldn't find her. But sometimes, late at night, if you stand near the edge of Maplewood's woods and listen closely, you might hear whispers in the trees, calling your name. And if you do, don't answer. Just run. Thanks for watching Haunted Chronicles. If you heard the whispers, don't ignore them. Subscribe for more true-feeling tales of terror. And remember, the most dangerous places aren't haunted by ghosts. They're haunted by the truths we bury. New horrors every day. Like, share, and stay close to the light. You never know what's watching when the night falls.